Hello, and welcome to the second of 3 informational webinars on the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge. Today's webinar will review some of the information provided in Webinar 1 about the Resilience Challenge and will provide new information to support your submissions. Before we get started, we wanted to review where new information can be found on the Resilience Challenge website. This is the second informational webinar. The first webinar was held on May 18th. The slide deck and recording of that webinar is available to watch on the Resilience Challenge page on challenge.gov. At the top of this slide, you can see a banner that is at the top of the Resilience Challenge homepage that tells you where the new material can be found. The recording is available at this link, which we will paste in the chat, and both English and Spanish slides are available on the Resources tab, pictured here. A new FAQ document was posted on Monday, June 5th that answers some common questions that were received during Webinar 1 and since the launch of the challenge. This can be found on the FAQ tab. Please continue submitting questions via the challenge website or to our email at resilienchallenge@hhs.gov. We will answer more questions in Webinar 3 and we'll be posting a second FAQ document before submissions close. Now, I'll walk through the agenda of what we will be covering in today's informational webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available and posted on the challenge.gov Resilience Challenge site 1 to 2 weeks after the webinar. This webinar also has live Spanish interpretation. To switch to the Spanish language channel, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. This webinar is also being live streamed on YouTube. If you experience technical issues, please send the hosts a message in the chat. I'll start off with introductions so you can learn a little bit about the Resilience Challenge team and we can get to know a little about you. I'll then provide an overview of the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge and then do a deep dive into the specific elements of the proposal and the key questions you will want to answer in your submission. Then I will talk about how submissions will be scored. I will also lead you through a walkthrough of the Resilience Challenge on challenge.gov and show you how to submit a proposal on the website. There will be time for a Q&A session at the end of today's informational webinar. If you are watching our Zoom webinar, please type questions in the Q&A box that you can see at the bottom of your screen. If you are watching on YouTube, please type your questions in the chat. In addition to answering questions at the end of the webinar, we will compile questions and post as an FAQ document on the Resilience Challenge website. Please follow the Resilience Challenge page on challenge.gov in order to receive updates when new FAQs are posted. I want to start out today by introducing myself. My name is Elena Schreier, and I use she, her pronouns. I am from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services here in Washington, D.C., and I'm here with you today as part of the Resilience Challenge team. The Children and Youth Resilience Challenge is a collaboration between multiple offices across the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that work to support children and youth mental health, including the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health, the Administration for Children and Families, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, the National Institutes of Health, and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The Resilience Challenge is also part of the President's Unity Agenda and Mental Health Strategy. We are so excited that you are here and are interested in learning more about the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge. We welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time and welcome back those of you who attended our first informational webinar. Now we want to get to know a little bit about those of you on today's webinar. I will launch 4 polling questions so we can get to know a little bit about you. Please respond to the 4 polling questions on Zoom or put your responses in the chat on YouTube. The first question is, what age group do you work with? Please select all that apply. The second question is, have you applied for federal government funding before? Please select yes or no. The third question is, have you applied for a federal prize challenge before? Please select yes or no. And the fourth question is, have you used any of the Spanish language materials? Please select yes or no. I see responses coming in. It's great to see how many of you are here with us today. We'll give it another 20 seconds or so as folks complete the polling questions. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results so everybody can see. I'll read through for those of you watching on YouTube. It looks like there is quite a range of age groups who those of you on this call work with. Looks like many of you work with adolescents, many of you work with school-aged children, more than half work with young adults, and then about a third of the folks on the call work with young children birth to 5. It looks like about 2/3 of those of you on this call have applied for federal government funding before, and very few have applied for a federal prize challenge before. So it's really great to see that range of experience and that so many folks are new to prize challenges. And then it looks like the Spanish language materials are being used. We're glad to see that. So after getting to know those of you on this call a little bit, I wanted to share our goals for today's informational webinar. We hope that you leave here today feeling enthusiastic and capable and excited about the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge and capable of submitting a proposal. We also hope that you leave with an understanding of what the challenge requirements are, an understanding of how to navigate challenge.gov, and an understanding of how you can ask questions of our team during the submission period between now and July 7th. From our polling questions earlier, we know that not that many of you have experience with prize challenges before, but many more of you have experience with other federal funding. We're so excited to see such a range of experience and welcome all of you to the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge. We want to spend a little time describing a prize challenge and the difference between a challenge and a grant or a contract, and to clarify some questions we received during the last webinar. A prize challenge is the best way for us to learn about the innovative things you are doing in your communities. Mental health and well-being is such an important issue, and prize challenges allow participants to bring more of their own creativity to solutions. We know there are so many ways to advance mental health and well-being and help children and youth to thrive. A challenge is different from a grant or a contract. In a grant or a contract, agencies generally receive proposals to do work and then pay out a monetary award incrementally as the work is done. In challenges, an agency generally selects a winner after assessing work that has already been completed. In multi-phase challenges like this one, winners are selected progressively as the different phases are completed. In this challenge, prizes will be awarded based on the work that has been submitted in each phase. For example, as you'll hear about shortly, Phase 1 winners will receive an award for the proposal that is submitted in Phase 1. Because this is a prize challenge and not a grant or a contract, there are no reporting requirements for prize winners. There is no federal monitoring for prize winners. The federal government does not instruct prize winners how to spend prize money. It only instructs how to submit a proposed solution for consideration. I'll get started by walking you through a brief overview of the challenge. what led the Department of Health and Human Services to create this opportunity, what the goals are, who is eligible, what the requirements are for submitting a proposal, how the challenge is structured, and what the prizes are. So why are we hosting a Children and Youth Resilience Challenge? Children and youth are experiencing a mental health crisis. A recent U.S. Surgeon General's advisory reports rising rates of psychological distress, including anxiety and depression among children and adolescents. Recent data from the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey really emphasizes that these concerning trends have been worsening over the years. The data show that a greater percentage of high school students report experiencing mental health challenges like persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness and poor mental health. We also see rising rates of suicidal behaviors among youth. The impacts of the mental health crisis are also seen in healthcare settings, where emergency department visits for mental health concerns have increased significantly. And the mental health crisis is not just affecting adolescents. Survey research also shows higher rates of internalizing and externalizing symptoms among very young children over the past few years. And while mental health challenges among both young children and adolescents have existed for years, they were really intensified by the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 worsened existing trends and really highlighted these difficulties. We know COVID-19 upended routines for children, youth, their families, and communities in really difficult ways. Many children experienced social isolation, away from their friends and peers. Many missed important milestones like first days of school and graduations. Children experienced significant stress due to parental job loss or unemployment and the serious financial stressors that many families faced. Children and youth lost access to critical supports in their communities and in the environments where they spend most of their time. And many children also experienced the loss of close family members and friends due to COVID-19 related deaths. We also know these impacts weren't felt evenly across the country. We saw disproportionate impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic among children and youth in under-resourced communities and among those children and youth experiencing racism and other structural injustices, further widening health inequities and disparities. Despite these alarming trends, we know children and adolescents are resilient and have the ability to adapt in the face of adversity. There is a real opportunity to build on the inherent strengths of children, youth, their families, and communities to support and build their resilience. Resilience helps to advance mental health and well-being and avoid negative mental health outcomes after adversity. Within this broad definition of resilience, we encourage your proposals to clearly define what resilience looks like in the context of your own community needs. So given the need and the opportunity, the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge is intended to award prizes to innovative, community-led solutions to promote resilience, advance mental health and well-being, and reduce the risk for negative mental health outcomes in children and adolescents affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and other man-made or natural disasters. The goals of the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge are to 1, promote positive strategies and solutions that help children and youth and their families and support systems thrive. 2, identify and elevate promising practices that promote culturally and linguistically responsive protective factors to improve resilience that advance mental health and well-being. 3, to support community-led innovation in promoting resilience among children, youth, and their families. Community-based settings have the promise to reach more people in the environments in which children and youth spend most of their time. And 4, increase understanding of gaps and opportunities to promote resilience, especially in underserved communities. And we also aim to catalyze action through public-private partnerships that can help broaden impact, address local needs, and promote sustainability. So what do we mean when we say community-led? For the purposes of this challenge, We consider community-led solutions to be those identified and driven by members of the community who are experts in their own contexts, needs, and solutions. Communities are the experts here. We want to learn from you about the strategies and solutions that you are already using to advance the mental health and well-being of the children and youth in your communities. A community-led solution involves community members working together or in collaboration with other entities to identify goals, develop plans that build on community strengths, and implement those plans to achieve the goals. We want to clarify from questions asked in our first webinar. The Resilience Challenge is open to all innovative community-led solutions that promote resilience, advance mental health and well-being, and reduce the risk for negative mental health outcomes among children and youth. The challenge does not state anywhere that innovative solutions cannot already be underway or exist in some form, nor does it narrowly define innovation. We encourage proposals about the innovative strategies and solutions you are already using to advance the mental health and well-being of children and youth in your communities. Proposals could also be for the enhancement of an existing solution or for a completely new approach. So who is eligible to submit a proposal to this challenge? The challenge is open to a broad range of individuals and entities, reflecting the community-based settings in which children and youth spend most of their time. This includes, but is not limited to, schools, early childhood settings, primary care providers, community-based organizations, advocacy organizations, tribal organizations, faith-based organizations, for-profit organizations or small businesses, youth-led organizations, nonprofit organizations, universities or community colleges, or any other child or youth serving entity. Individuals are also eligible to enter. The list on this slide is not comprehensive, and we encourage you to review the complete eligibility requirements to determine if you, your team, or your organization is eligible to participate. We strongly encourage proposals from community-based organizations serving children and youth, youth-led organizations, and teams that partner with community-based or youth-led organizations because we believe that communities are best situated to understand the complex challenges confronting them and build impactful solutions. We want to learn your solutions to promoting resilience across the full spectrum of childhood, adolescence, and emerging adulthood, including young children birth to age 5, school-age children, adolescents, and transition-aged youth to age 24. Participants are encouraged to consider the most appropriate age range for your solution, given your expertise and service array. The challenge does not narrowly define any geographic focus or scope for submitting proposals within the United States. We also strongly encourage proposals that advance equity for historically underserved communities. By underserved communities, we mean populations and communities that have been systematically denied a full opportunity to participate in aspects of economic, social, and civic life. Executive Order 13985 identifies the following as examples of underserved communities: Black, Latino, and Indigenous and Native American persons, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and other persons of color, members of religious minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer persons, persons with disabilities, persons who live in rural areas, and persons otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. We believe that participants in this challenge are best equipped to identify, under this broad definition, the underserved communities they seek to empower and support as part of the challenge. Now I will walk you through the challenge structure. The Resilience Challenge will occur in multiple phases. Phase 1 is the proposal phase. In Phase 1, you will submit a proposal describing your promising, innovative approach to building resilience among children and youth in your community. Submissions opened on May 4th and will close on July 7th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. To learn about the challenge and how to submit a proposal, we are hosting 3 informational webinars during the submission period. The first webinar was held on May 18th. The second webinar is today, and the third webinar is on Wednesday, June 21st. Finalists will be announced in late August 2023. Up to 14 finalists will be selected and will receive $25,000 each. Prizes will be paid in full to only one person or entity per proposal. If you are submitting a proposal as a team of multiple individuals, you should identify only one team lead who will be responsible for coordinating to facilitate and receive the payment. Phase 2 is the pilot phase. The 14 Phase 1 finalists are strongly encouraged to progress to Phase 2, where they will pilot their proposals from approximately September 2023 through May 2024. During this period, finalists will have opportunities to receive technical assistance and mentorship to help them pilot their proposals. We will support and encourage Phase 1 finalists to engage in cross-learning and information sharing to learn from each other and other experts with the goal of enhancing your approach to strengthening resilience. At the end of Phase 2, finalists will submit a report that outlines their findings. This report will be judged and scored. One grand prize winner of Phase 2 will receive $300,000, and 2 runners-up will receive $175,000 each. At the end of the challenge, all finalists will be invited to present their innovations at an in-person summit in Washington, D.C. in summer 2024. We have funding available to cover summit travel costs for up to 2 persons per finalist proposal. And although the challenge will officially end in summer 2024, the grand prize and runners-up winners of the pilot phase will be offered technical assistance and mentorship to scale and implement their pilot projects. We will provide additional details about what this will look like at a later date. This is important. Prizes awarded under this challenge will be paid by electronic funds transfer and may be subject to federal income taxes. The HHS Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health will comply with the Internal Revenue Service withholding and reporting requirements where applicable. Please consult with an attorney, accountant, financial advisor, or other professional to understand the financial implications of a prize challenge. Now that we've covered the basics, we'll turn to the information you need for your submission. What materials do you need to submit to the Resilience Challenge? As you can see from this checklist, you will first need a challenge.gov account to submit your proposals. You can create a user account by going to challenge.gov. There are 2 required elements to your submission. You are required to submit a written proposal and a timeline. There are 2 additional elements that you may need to submit depending on your proposal. If you are partnering with an organization or entity in your proposal, you will need letters of support from those organizations or entities. If your team includes any individuals younger than 18, you will also need a signed parental consent form for each individual under age 18. And we want to clarify that the parental consent form is only needed if an individual under the age of 18 is a member of the submission team. For the purposes of the Phase 1 proposal submission, parental consent forms are not required for minors that you expect to reach, enroll in, or participate in through your approach or intervention. You do not need to have youth already enrolled in your approach at the time of the Phase 1 proposal submission. Turning to the proposal itself, I'll walk you through the key elements that you will want to address in your proposal. We'll start with the why. We want to know what need you are meeting in your community related to children and youth resilience. You will want to introduce your project, identify your community, and explain your definition of resilience in the context of your community. You will describe the need to build resilience among the children and youth in your community to respond to COVID-19 or other man-made or natural disasters. Next, you will want to cover the who. Who will benefit from your proposed activity? You will want to clearly describe who you aim to reach, including details as relevant, like the age and race or ethnicity of the children or youth who will be reached through your approach. You may also want to include information about their incomes and insurance status, or whether they are from urban, rural, or tribal communities, among other relevant characteristics. You will want to tell us the number of children and youth who you anticipate will be enrolled in or reached through your proposed approach. And you will want to tell us the extent to which other community members or family members will be involved in your proposed approach. Next, you will want to cover the where. Where will your proposed activity take place? You will want to describe the location or setting where your proposed activity will take place. Will it be in a school, in a home, in the community, online? Are there any other settings involved? You will also describe the resources in the setting that will support your success. The what and how are important substance for your proposal. You will want to clearly describe your approach to promoting resilience. What will you be doing? Why will it be effective? As you are describing your approach, you might need to address the when. When will these activities occur during the Phase 2 time period of September 2023 to May 2024, which we'll cover a little later when we talk about the timeline. You will want to describe how your approach is innovative and uniquely addresses the needs of your community. You will want to address how your approach will benefit participants and their community. What outcomes do you anticipate? You will want to address how your approach will advance equity for underserved communities. You will also want to describe how Phase 1 prize funds could support the implementation of your proposed approach. And you will also want to describe your approach to continuing or sustaining this work after the challenge is over. On the last slide, we talked about the anticipated outcomes, or how your approach will benefit participants. In the data section, you will want to explain how you will know your approach has been successful. You will want to describe any data that helped you to understand the need to build resilience in your community. You will want to clearly describe the outcomes you will be measuring, so how you will know you're building resilience and identifying preliminary evidence of positive impact. You will also want to describe how you will collect and analyze data and assess how you are monitoring the delivery of your approach. And you will need to describe your approach to ensuring confidentiality. Finally, you will need to address your team. As we've shared, this challenge is intended to be community-led, and we strongly encourage proposals that demonstrate a commitment to engaging youth and families in the development of the proposal or in an advisory capacity throughout the challenge. Tell us about your organization, its size, and the community it serves. You will want to describe how your team fits into that community. What is the relationship of your team to the community where the proposed work is being done? How has the community contributed to the proposal, and how will they be involved in the approach? You will want to be specific about any partnerships, including the specific roles of each partner. You will want to describe the capabilities of your team, including expertise and experience that will increase the likelihood your proposal will be successful. Describe the resources your organization and team has that will enable success. And finally, you will want to describe any gaps or limitations that you might have in your team's ability to implement your proposal. The proposal should be 3 to 5 pages, single-spaced. We have provided suggested page lengths for each section, but these are not requirements. It is most important that you make sure you are clearly explaining each element within the 3 to 5 pages. As we mentioned earlier, we also want to know when your activities will take place. you must also submit a timeline that highlights when your proposed activities will occur and identifies any key milestones. We do not have a recommended format for a timeline, but it could look something like this, with dates along the top representing the phase 2 timeline and activities along the side with check marks or X's to indicate when each activity will occur. You also need to include letters of support from any appropriate entities or partners. If you have team members younger than 18, you also need a signed parental consent form for each individual on your submission team under age 18. That is available on the Resources tab on the Challenge website. These materials, the timeline, letters of support, and parental consent forms do not count towards the 3 to 5 page limit. Now that we've walked through each element, we want to do a quick check-in with a polling question. Please select yes or no in response to the following question. I have a clear understanding of what a successful proposal might look like. We see responses still coming in. We'll give it another 15 seconds or so. All right, and the poll, it looks like about 94% of you have a clear understanding of what a successful proposal might look like. I'm so glad to see so many of you are feeling that way. There are multiple opportunities during the submission period to get your remaining questions answered. Please continue to submit questions in the Q&A box, and we will have time at the end of today's webinar to answer questions. We will be answering additional questions at the final webinar on June 21st. And we will be posting FAQ documents on the Resilience Challenge site on challenge.gov. The first FAQ document is available for download on the Resilience Challenge site now. Please be sure to follow the challenge to receive notifications when FAQs are posted. Now we will turn to how proposals will be scored. Proposals will be judged across these 5 categories: understanding your community need, the intervention approach, the intervention impact and sustainability, innovation and equity, and partnerships. Proposals will be scored out of a total of 30 points. Now, I will go through the specific criteria for each judging element. First, your proposals will be judged on the extent to which they demonstrate an understanding of the community need. This includes 3 criteria. First, proposals will be judged on the extent to which they demonstrate an understanding of the needs of children and youth affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and other disasters. Next, proposals will be judged on the extent to which they demonstrate the importance of building resilience through innovative community-led approaches. Proposals will also be judged on the extent to which they clearly define resilience. The second element on which proposals will be judged is the approach. Here, we will be assessing the activities that are being proposed and the extent to which they are feasible. Proposals will be judged on the extent to which they demonstrate the knowledge, experience, and capacity to fully implement the proposed plan. Proposals will also be judged on the extent to which they show how the participant will implement specific action steps to accomplish their goals. And proposals will also be judged on the extent to which they demonstrate a clear plan to capture baseline data and show improvement in the identified outcomes. The third element is impact and sustainability. Here, we will be assessing the likelihood that what is being proposed will be effective and be sustained. Proposals will be judged on the extent to which they provide a clear picture of how the approach will build resilience in children and youth. Proposals will also be judged on the extent to which the data collection or analysis process will enable the project to identify preliminary evidence of positive impact and the extent to which the proposed approach is likely to build resilience in children and youth. Proposals will also be judged on the likelihood that activities and impacts can be sustained. The fourth element is innovation and equity. Proposals will be judged on whether the approach focuses on children and youth from historically underserved communities and the extent to which the proposed approach would advance equity for underserved communities. Proposals will also be judged on the extent to which the approach is innovative or is proposing an approach not well represented in this area. The last judging element is partnerships. This element reflects the Resilience Challenge's commitment to community-led solutions. Proposals will be judged on the extent to which they integrate child, youth, family, or community voice in the design and implementation of the approach. Proposals will also be judged on the extent to which they integrate partnerships within the community. And proposals will be judged on the extent to which the proposed partnerships are sustainable after the challenge is complete. To submit your proposal, you will need to create an account on challenge.gov. We have included step-by-step information on the Resilience Challenge site. Now I will stop sharing my screen and my colleague will begin to share her screen to do a walkthrough of how to navigate challenge.gov and submit a proposal using the challenge.gov site. Great, thank you. To access the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge site, you will start by typing challenge.gov into the address bar. On the challenge.gov home screen, you can scroll down to Active Challenges and find the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge. Click on the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge. This will take you to the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge homepage. At the top, you will see a banner that says Important Update. This is how we will let you know when we have added FAQs, webinar recordings, and slide decks. In this top section, you can also see a button to Follow Challenge. Click this button to receive updates when new resources are added. You can also see details about when the submission period is, the type of challenge, and the total cash prize available. This is also where you can apply for the challenge, which we will come back to shortly. Scrolling down further, you can see tabs that indicate where you can find specific information. Today, we are starting on the Overview tab. This tab provides background information about the challenge, information about the challenge structure, considerations for eligible participants, and information about Spanish language materials. The next tab is the Timeline. This page shares important dates for the Resilience Challenge. The next tab is Prizes. This page provides a description of the cash prizes and non-monetary prizes available to awardees. Information about how prizes awarded under this challenge will be paid is also on this page. The next tab is the Rules. These include eligibility requirements and rules for participation. Please be sure you have read the eligibility requirements and rules carefully. The next tab is Judging. This tab provides information about how Phase 1 proposals will be judged. We described these criteria earlier on in this webinar. The next tab is How to Enter. This tab provides important information about how to enter the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge, including the materials you need to submit, step-by-step instructions for submitting your entry on challenge.gov, and the detailed submission requirements also described earlier. The next tab is Resources. This tab includes important resources that you can access, including the Spanish language translation of the challenge, the slides in both English and Spanish from Webinar 1, and the parental consent form you will need if you have members of your submission team under the age of 18. The next tab is the FAQ tab. This includes information about how to register for our webinars and links to the material on the resources page. The FAQ tab also includes an FAQ document available for download. And finally, the Contact tab includes a form where you can submit questions to the Resilience Challenge team. Now that we have walked you through the Children and Youth Resilience Challenge website, we will show you how to submit a proposal. You will first need to create a challenge.gov account by clicking Create Account at the top of the screen. Once you have created an account and are logged in, you can click the orange Apply to this Challenge button on the top of the challenge page. This takes you to the submission form. On this form, you will provide general submission information, including the title of your submission. Under Brief Description, you should enter a short summary of your submission that is less than 500 characters. Under Description, you should identify whether you are competing as an individual, team of individuals, or entity. If you are competing as an individual, please provide the name and contact information of that individual in the description box. If you are competing as an entity, please provide the name and contact information of the entity point of contact. To summarize, you should be providing your submission type, individual, team of individuals, or entity, and contact information for one person in the description box. And finally, to submit your proposal and other materials, you will follow the instructions to upload files. Click the gray Choose File button to load a file from your computer. Name your files using the format as specified on the How to Enter tab. For example, Submission with the title of your submission. Appendix A, title of your submission. Once you have selected your file, click the blue Attach button to attach your file to the submission. You will upload a separate file for each document, so repeat these steps until all your files have been uploaded. To complete your submission, you will check the box that acknowledges you have read the rules, terms, and conditions of the challenge. You can then click the Review and Submit button at the bottom of the page, and then click the Submit button to complete your entry when you are finished. You can also click Save Draft to return to your submission at any time. We hope this walkthrough has been helpful. Now I will turn back for just a few slides on our next steps before getting to our Q&A. We have one final webinar scheduled for Wednesday, June 21st from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This webinar will review some of the information covered in webinars 1 and 2, and will spend time answering the most common questions we have received during the submission period. Before we get to the Q&A, we wanted to check in and ask 3 more polling questions. Please respond to these 3 polling questions or type your answer in the YouTube chat. See many responses still coming in. Give it another 20 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to end the polls. I see that most of you have a clear understanding of what your next steps are. I also see some great suggestions for what elements of the challenge you'd like more information on in webinar 3, especially on developing a proposal and how proposals will be judged. And then many of you are planning to attend webinar 3, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. So before we move on to Q&A, I wanted to share that questions that we were not able to answer live today will be compiled and posted in an FAQ page on the Resilience Challenge website. We will also be answering additional questions at webinar 3. You can also submit questions to us on the Contact tab on the Resilience Challenge page on challenge.gov or via email at resilienchallenge@hhs.gov. So now I'd like to invite my colleague, Lauren, who has been gathering your questions throughout the webinar today. Lauren will unmute and read some of the common questions out loud. And as I just shared, answers to questions we're unable to respond to today will be compiled in an FAQ document and posted on the Resilience Challenge site. And please follow the Resilience Challenge on challenge.gov to be notified when FAQs are posted.
So the first question that we're getting several questions of is, what is the difference between a prize challenge and a grant or contract?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be able to clarify because I know, especially for folks who are used to a grant or a contract, a prize challenge is pretty different. So a prize challenge or a prize competition is a type of project that allows the public to solve challenges presented by federal agencies and receive awards for the best solutions. So in a grant or a contract, an agency receives proposals to do tasks or research, chooses one entity to participate, and then pays the monetary award incrementally for the work that is going to be done. In a prize competition, an agency generally selects a winner or winners based on the work that has already been done. So it's an award for work already submitted. Unlike contracts, which provide detailed specifications of the work that needs to be done, prize competitions define a smaller set of requirements which allow participants to really bring their creative solutions. And I think we can probably put a link in the chat to an introductory video that can help further explain what a prize challenge is.
Great. I'll chat in just a moment. Are there restrictions on how the prize money can be spent?
This is another really important distinction between a prize challenge and a grant or a contract. So because this is a prize challenge, there are no reporting requirements for prize winners. There's no federal monitoring for prize winners. There are no restrictions on how the prize money can be spent. That being said, we do strongly encourage finalists to use their phase 1 prize money to support the implementation and refinement of their phase 2 pilots in order to best prepare their innovations for their phase 2 submission.
Do people need to submit a budget with their proposal?
No, this is another difference between a grant and a contract and a challenge. A budget is not required with the submission materials. The federal government cannot prescribe how you use your prize winnings. Proposals should describe how prize funds could support the implementation of your proposed approach during the phase 2 competition.
Great. And you talked a little bit about this, but could you share a little bit more? Do proposals need to be for a new activity, or can they be for something that someone or a group of people are already doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is another really important question. The Resilience Challenge is open to all innovative community-led solutions that promote resilience, advance mental health and well-being, and reduce the risk for negative mental health outcomes among children and youth. The challenge does not state anywhere that innovative solutions can't already be underway or exist in some form, and we do not narrowly define innovation. So we encourage proposals about the innovative strategies and solutions you're already using, and proposals could also be for the enhancement of an existing solution or for something completely new. We do want to note that judges, as you can see from the judging criteria, and as we described earlier, that judges will score the proposed solution on the extent to which the submitter demonstrates that their approach is innovative or not well represented in this area.
Great. Do interventions need to be directly delivered to children or young adults, or can the program be provided to people who are connected to children or young adults?
That's another really great question. So the Resilience Challenge does not state that only children or youth can be the intended recipients of interventions, only that it is open to any innovative community-led solution that promotes resilience, advances mental health and well-being, and reduces the risk for negative mental health outcomes among children and youth. And there are certainly examples of interventions that target youth-serving professionals, caregivers, or other supportive adults for the purposes of meeting the goals of the challenge. And this is particularly true for interventions that aim to impact infants and young children. In your proposal, you should describe the population the approach is designed to reach, including the extent to which community members or family will be involved in the proposed approach.
Great. And are collaborations with partner organizations required, or can one organization submit a proposal?
That's a great question. Collaborations with partner organizations are not required, but we do strongly encourage that proposals reflect the needs and goals of the community. So a partnership is not required, but proposals will be judged and scored on the extent to which the proposal is community-led, and encourage folks to take a clear look at the both the how to enter criteria and the judging criteria to make sure your submission can be most successful.
Great. Can you clarify again who would need a parental consent form?
Yes, we got a lot of questions about this after the last webinar. A parental consent form is required if an individual under the age of 18 is a member of the submission team. So for the purposes of the proposal submission, we require parental consent forms only for individuals under the age of 18 who are part of your submission team. We do not require parental consent forms for minors that you expect to reach or enroll in, or who you expect to participate in your approach or intervention. And you do not need to have youth already enrolled in your approach at the time of your proposal submission.
What type of data is needed when someone is submitting a proposal?
That's a really good question. I know sometimes the term data can feel a little overwhelming. But the Resilience Challenge does not prescribe the type of data or data analysis that should be used. Proposals should clearly describe the type of data and analysis that is most appropriate for your specific approach and community context. So in your submission, you should describe your data, including what helped you to understand the need to build resilience in your community, the outcomes you will be measuring, your approach to collecting and analyzing data, and your approach to monitoring and assessing the delivery of your approach. But we do not prescribe kind of what that looks like. So really encourage you to just be clear about how your team will do that and how it is most appropriate to your approach and community context. Proposals will be judged on the extent to which there's a clear plan to collect data that can show improvement in the outcomes you've identified, and will be judged on the extent to which the proposed data collection or analysis process will enable you to identify preliminary evidence of positive impact. But again, what this actually looks like is not prescribed. We encourage you to just be clear about it in your proposal.
Great. And could you clarify who would need a letter of support when they're submitting a proposal?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are partnering with an organization or an entity on your proposed work, so as a member of your team or a setting where you will be completing the work, we ask that you please include a letter of support from that organization or entity. We do not have a required format for letters of support, and we'll leave that up to each submission team.
Great. Do we have time for one more?
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. So again, can you just revisit if people have questions beyond what they're asking right now, or if they're watching the recording, where should they ask their questions? How can they get in touch with us?
Yes, absolutely. So there are multiple ways to submit questions. You can continue to submit questions here in the Q&A. We will compile those and be sure that those questions are answered in webinar 3 or in an FAQ document. You can submit questions directly through challenge.gov on the contact tab that we showed you earlier, or you can email resiliencepchallenge@hhs.gov. We encourage you to review our posted FAQs on challenge.gov to make sure and to see if your question is answered. All right. Thank you very much, Lauren, for facilitating that Q&A. We thank you for spending time with us this afternoon and for learning about the Resilience Challenge. And we have 2 final polling questions for the day. We want to know if you are planning to submit a proposal and if you feel capable of submitting a proposal to the Resilience Challenge. Responses are rolling in. Give it about another 15 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to end the poll. It looks like most of you, the vast majority of you, 97% are planning to submit a proposal. We are so excited to see the innovations that you are submitting. And it looks like almost everybody either agrees or strongly agrees that they feel capable of submitting a proposal to the Resilience Challenge. We really look forward to continuing to answer your questions and to continue to help you feel as capable as possible of submitting a proposal. So to wrap up, we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on Wednesday, June 21st. Please be sure to follow the Resilience Challenge on challenge.gov to receive updates. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon.